Very well said.
My friend Rajendra Vyas, my very dear friends from the academic fraternity, we are fortunate that at a very short notice, we have been able to organize this workshop.
I am making a request to all the participants here to keep their mobiles off or in a silent mode.
We all know that this issue of Brexit, this was under discussion for about 3-4 months, and then 23rd June was the D-Day for the referendum by the British people, and 30 million people, they casted their vote, of which 58% were for leave and 48% to remain. And as a result, the verdict was in favor of leaving European Union by the British government or the United Kingdom. As the verdict was only on Thursday late evening, and the impact on the Indian capital market or the Indian current market was visible only on the Friday morning. We all know that the capital market went down, dipped to below 1,000 points in Sensex, but immediately thereafter on Monday, the capital market started recovering. So last Friday and today is also Friday, within such a short span. So therefore I am very grateful that today we have 8 very eminent economists with us. 4 of them, Professor Suman Mukherjee, Dr. Abhijit Sen, my friend on the left, Suparno Maitro, and Professor Pankaj Rai. 4 have already come, and 4, Professor Rajagopal Dhar Chakravarti, and Professor Dipankar De, Professor Bijupal Abraham from IIM Joka, and Professor Ratan Khashanvish. These 4 will also join shortly. So we will have 8 eminent personalities to discuss about the impact this Brexit will have on the global economy and also on the Indian economy. To be very brief about what Brexit is, so basically Britain and exit, it's a combination of the 2 terms. Now, the implication, why Britishers, they thought of leaving European Union. We know European Union is a combination of 28 European countries, and it is a single market. And this market speaks about the integration, not only of the economic issues, but also all other several issues, because even if you look at the WTO, World Trade Organization, it only speaks about the movement of trade in goods, trade in services, and trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. These are the only 3 broader pillars of the WTO. But here, under the European Union, there is no restriction on the movement of migration amongst the member countries. So the basic issue of the Brexit, I say that there are 3 basic issues which were of concern to the British people before they cast their vote. And these 3 issues are broadly the issue of identity. Identity of a nation. How do you identify your nation? When you find that the identity starts getting blurred by the different cultures and the different people, then you start missing something. So identity was one of the major issue. Then the economic sovereignty. Economic sovereignty is also very important, and when the flexibility of decision taking power is lost, when you as a nation, as a parliament, is unable to decide about the future of your own country, and those things have to be decided upon certain factors which are from outside your country, then there is encroachment on your economic sovereignty. So identity, economic sovereignty, and the third major issue was the migration. As we know, migration not only from the EU country itself, but the influx of the people even outside the EU, which were coming within the European Union, and the recent impact of the ISIS and on the Syrian, and we know about 7.8 million people are standstill in Turkey. Turkey has a population of 78 million people, but there are 7.8 million people already in Turkey, and European Union has given an assurance that they will allow these people to come and stay in different parts of the European Union. And these apprehensions were building fear in the mind of the British people that already with the fall of the Berlin Wall, they had to accommodate a lot of people from the CIS countries, from the East European countries. And the basic identity of the British people was getting disturbed. So these three basic issues, I think, were in the mind of the British people by the thought of going for this referendum. So I repeat, the question of identity, the question of economic sovereignty, and the question of migration, the demographic attack of the outside people in the country. Now, what does it indicate? And what lesson we should take from this event? Number one, we all know that post-Second World War, the world is going very fast in the process of globalization. So the question is whether there is a rethinking on the issue of the process of globalization. Post-Second World War, the establishment of the Bretton Woods institutions, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and then the then ITO, International Trade Organization, which became GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, and finally WTO. All these institutions broadly speak about the integration of the economic activity, be it goods, be it services, be it capital, be it technology, be it movement of the people. So whether Brexit will throw any challenge in the process of this globalization. This is number one. Because along with these established institutions which were created immediately after the Second World War, then as a catalyst to further speed up the process of globalization and also to incorporate certain issues which were there not part of these WTO and the IMF and the World Bank, there were many issues which were included in the free trade agreement, in the regional trade agreement, and several other plurilateral agreements or the multilateral agreement. And therefore, what we found recently that the United States, which were not very much satisfied with the existing provisions of the WTO agreement, and particularly the TRIPS agreement. So in the TRIPS, US was always looking for TRIPS plus, because whether you all know or not, but then there are certain provisions in the Indian Patent Act and in the IPR laws of various other countries which have provided for certain issues, say Section 3D of the Patent Act for establishing the criteria of granting a patent or not, because there are a lot of frivolous patents which were being granted in the field of pharma. So Indian government had legislated its Patent Act by insertion of Section 3D, whereby the Indian government did not allow patent to Novartis, and then there are provisions on compulsory licensing, because of which buyers' patent on this Nexavar was granted to NATCO. So there are certain issues like 3D, compulsory licensing, very grant opposition, and data exclusivity, which were of concern to the United States. So my question is that whether the process of globalization, whether there will be a haltage to the process of globalization. And there are fears. Even there is a talk now in the United States. The presidential candidate, Trump, he's already started talking whether there should be a limit to the process of globalization or we should go back to certain areas of protectionism. Because globalization on the one hand, though it increases trade and investment, but on the other hand, it also has a danger for the jobs within the country. So those who were propagating about the free trade, now they have started feeling the pain and the pinch of the free trade. So the Trump has made it an agenda, and Hillary has also been taking a clue from her own counterpart from the Democratic Party's Sanders, who had been also saying that there should be some restrictions on the movement of this free trade idea. So probably the Trans-Pacific Agreement that which Obama was so desperate to bring in. So in the Trans-Pacific Agreement, there may be some roadblocks. Similarly, on the Trade Investment Partnership, TIPP, there also there may be some road blockades. So both these two new agreements, which were something more than what was there in the existing agreements of the WTO and other trade agreements. So probably there will be some road blockade on the other ongoing discussions. This is number one. Now for United Kingdom, what we find that within the United Kingdom, if you look at the composition of the votes casted by different groups in the United Kingdom, we know that like India has say 29 states and many other union territories, but in United Kingdom it is divided into 4 broader provinces: Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and England itself. If you look at the composition of the votes, which I have given in my this brochure, what we find that broadly Scotland and Northern Ireland, they have cast their vote in favor of remaining. Okay, Wales and England, they have cast their vote more in favor of leaving. Okay, so there is a difficult situation now. Scotland has already started saying that we want to remain within the European Union. And if UK as a country as such doesn't want, because of the verdict of referendum, then we know that just 3 years before there was a referendum in United Kingdom, and Scotland, for Scotland there was a referendum whether Scotland would like to remain with United Kingdom or not, but with some marginal margin, the decision was that they should stay. But the voice of a fresh referendum, whether Scotland would like to remain within the UK or not, is again reviving. So within United Kingdom also there are differences, and I was just looking at the proceedings of the Parliament just 3-4 days before, after this referendum. The Labour Party leader, the leader of the opposition, he was feeling, very disgusting about, because the parliamentarian from the Labour Party, they were not very happy about him. And just 2 days after his speech, there is a no confidence vote against the leader of opposition. Now look at the situation. So therefore, in the existing British Parliament, the Tory party, which is under the Prime Minister Cameron, and the Labour Party, which is in opposition. So between the two major national party, there is no difference on this issue. So majority of them want to remain. So if you look at the opinion of the British Parliament today, the majority of the opinion is to remain. But the verdict of the people is against the views of the parliamentarians. Okay? And therefore the Labour Party chief, he has refused to resign. He said that the people have elected me, so therefore I refrain from resigning. And now Cameron, he has already said very clearly that I am going to resign because people have voted against what I wanted to remain. So therefore I have no right to continue as PM, and I am going to step down, and there should be a new fresh election, and a new Prime Minister should take the decision about fresh negotiation with European Union. And one particular thing which is the basic constitution of the European Union, and that is through the Lisbon Treaty. And the Lisbon Treaty provides that if any member wants to come out of the European Union, they have to follow a process, and this process is very lengthy process, and it takes about 2 years under Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty to complete the process. So what he says, that this process has to be decided by the new Prime Minister, and in the meantime, the immediate impact on the British economy, according to the Prime Minister Cameron, is that nothing will change for these 2 years. Everything will remain same for these 2 years till the United Kingdom formally comes out of the European Union after following the process of Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. Now, another few issues which I would just like to touch upon, then I will request my other colleague speakers to dwell upon the issue. Now, when we look at the European Union as such from the single market point of view, there are various issues which are covered under the single market conditions, but there are few things, like as if you look at the currency, United Kingdom still follows its own currency. Sterling pound is not euro, so euro is a different agreement. So all members of the European Union are not having the same currency. That is one. So euro is different, sterling is different. That is number one. So only 19 out of 28 members are part of the euro, and remaining, including Switzerland, are not part of the euro. That is number one. Now, similarly, there are several other agreements, and I had few discussion with my colleagues in Europe, and they said that on the IPR laws, because apart from European Union, there is a European Patent Office, okay, which regulate the patent, because today if you get a patent in European Union, it is valid for the entire European countries who are the party to the EPO. So the EPO, they say, is an intergovernmental organization, is a IGO, okay, and it is not part of European Union. So the regulations of the IPR or the patents will not get affected by the Brexit. So similarly, there are many other issues which I hope that my other colleague speakers will cover. Now, only about the impact on the Indian economy, we know that if you look at the sterling and the Indian rupee, how it has behaved. Now, in these last 7 days, the sterling rupee ratio, say Indian rupee were almost about 199 something against £1 sterling. Today, if you look at it, is 89 point something. So there is a devaluation of sterling or appreciation of rupee by almost 10% in this immediately after this Brexit. Euro and rupee, if you look at the impact is less than 2%, 1.5%. Okay. So what we find, according to the currency market, the sterling has gone down substantially as against the dollar as compared to the euro. Okay. So those companies, say IT company and the pharma company, I heard that the Indian IT company like Infosys or TCS, their dependency on the British market is about 15 to 20%, and their revenue is definitely going to be adversely affected, whatever revenue they get, provided this trend continues, because we don't know what is the future. But today there is a turmoil and uncertainty in the currency market, so the present situation is like this. Similarly, the banks which have entered into the forward contract and the money which will be credited in these few days, and whatever money is coming to the bank against those forward contract, so the bank will definitely be loser to that extent for whatever receipt they have from the United Kingdom. Now, apart from this, if you look at our capital market, though last Friday it went down, but thereafter I was told that October 10, 2015 was whatever level it was, so it has crossed that level, and so therefore capital market is also positive. So broadly there are indications that the Indian economy will not get adversely affected, rather there are indications that the Indian economy will have a positive impact from the Brexit, because the negotiating capacity of the Indian negotiators will increase. You see, there was a shadow axis between United States, England and European Union. As long as England was part of European Union, so there was an axis between US and the European Union, and when combined, we call it the Western power, Western economic power. So I had the personal experience while participating in the WTO ministerial conferences, that in almost all the issues, whether it is an issue of agricultural subsidy or the NAMA negotiation, non-agricultural market access, or even on the CATS or TRIPS, by and large, there was a unity in the European Union and the United States in all the various issues on the negotiations. Now with this Brexit, there will be a divide between this axis of power. US and European Union will not be the same. Secondly, if you look at the United Nations, out of the permanent 5 members in the Security Council, France and United Kingdom, when European Union was one, so practically European Union had 2 permanent seats in the Security Council. Now there will be 2 separate. So therefore, if you look at from the international scenario, basically the Western economic power will get a little bit weakened, and therefore even last time when there was a global meltdown, and Swadeshi Research Institute, and through my effort we had come out with a publication, Global Meltdown. So with today's deliberation and whatever input we will have another publication on the Brexit, which will be circulated to you. And to my mind, I had mentioned here that the winds of change are blowing in favor of from west to east, and what I find that overall there will be positive impact on the Asian countries, and India will be a net gainer out of this Brexit impact. And I feel that Britishers who were so far post-World War, they had seen the earlier days of colonization, because it was a unilateral thing. You colonize the country and you have nothing to give, you only take. And thereafter they wanted to convert colonialism by economic globalism. But in the economic globalism, it is a reciprocal thing. You just don't get, you also have to give. So when the question is of giving and taking both, then it depends how much you can give. So Britishers felt that they are unable to give to the extent it is required. So therefore, what I would say, colonization cannot be equated with globalization. Okay? And globalization, if it is on a fair ground, please mind the word, free and fair. Globalization, if it is on fair grounds, countries like India, which has a very rich human resource, very rich intellectual resource, we are likely to gain out of globalization. It is on the other side, the West, whether they want to accept the fair deal of the globalization or not. If they want, globalization per se is not bad. It is in favor of the developing countries. And I had mentioned it somewhere else last week. Today, again, I am trying to, mention before you, today we are an economy of $2 trillion. If we are given a fair deal, friends, on the two pillars of exchange rate and on IPR, intellectual property rights, I would say India will become an economy of $20 trillion. So let us be optimistic. Let us dwell upon the issue. With these few remarks, I would like to convey my thanks to all of you for participating on this important issue of Brexit. We will have more such discussion in coming days, and Swadeshi Research Institute will feel proud that we have been able to organize this workshop at such a short time. Now I request Mr. Vyas to please do the further proceedings. Thank you.
Thanks.